2 lecture test 4 video 15. This will be the last video for test 4, so 16. Be video 16. Okay, so we are talking about the nutrients, the 6 nutrients in a balanced diet. For me, this is top of page 27. If yours printed differently, this is where I am, what it should look like. 6 nutrients in a balanced diet are carbs, lipids, proteins, vitamins, minerals, and water. Water is a nutrient. Cells absorb digested, broken down and disassembled molecules and either break them down to make ATP. Let's go with the red. Is it still on the red pen? Wait, where'd the pen go? I thought that was the... Oh, not on the pen. Okay. Talking to myself, breaking down for ATP or used to make stuff. Yeah, that's it. Carbohydrases, and remember ASE is an enzyme that breaks down whatever came in front of it. So carbohydrases break down carbs into simple sugars, monosaccharides. Proteases break down protein into amino acids, and lipases break down fats and fatty acids, and also nucleic acids get broken down into nucleotides, and they didn't give us an enzyme name for that, so I'm certain there is one, but we're not responsible for it. We're not responsible for knowing it. Complex carbs are polysaccharides. These are your starches and sugars. Glycogen and cellulose are your basic examples. Glycogen is the sugar storage molecule in animals. We store, as humans, glycogen in the liver and skeletal muscle cells. And animals use cellulose, which we can't actually break down. So it's good fiber. Disaccharides, di means 2, so it's 2 monosaccharides stuck together. Maltose, sucrose, and lactose are all disaccharides. Sucrose is your table sugar. Lactose is milk sugar. If you are lactose intolerant, then it means you don't have the enzyme lactase. And the lactase breaks the lactose down into its 2 constituent parts, which I think is the galactose and the glucose, but it's been a while since I looked that up. And so if you don't have lactase, then you are lactose intolerant. Then when you eat ice cream, you will have, let's put it gently, gastrointestinal distress, which means that lactose is not broken down, and the lactose as one disaccharide does not do good things to your digestive tract. It does bad things to your digestive tract. You'll know. Oh, and babies are not lactose intolerant because there's lactose in mama milk. And so babies, it's very rare for babies to be lactose intolerant, because if it were a common thing for babies to be lactose intolerant, we might not be here as a species. But newborns who are sensitive to formula can be, and mama milk, can be sensitive to cow's milk because it's a very large, it's a large thing, large proteins, and they're difficult to break down, and not all babies can do it. And so it is common for babies to be sensitive to the cow's milk proteins in your milk or in the formula. And I've heard some people like say, oh, well, okay, and then like stop breastfeeding and switch them to the soy formula. Soy formula is both gross, and there's a high prevalence of babies who are sensitive to cow's milk proteins are also sensitive to the soy milk proteins. And so if you completely wean, then go on the soy milk, and then they're allergic to that, then you go to the really expensive, really gross stuff, which is hard to get them to drink. So consider just cutting dairy out of your diet entirely. And it does take a week or two to get all of the proteins out of your system. But definitely, if you are choosing to breastfeed and if you are choosing to continue breastfeeding after you think this is an issue, definitely consider that as an option. As always, everyone makes the choices that work best for them and their families. Okay. But lactase is the enzyme that breaks down the lactose, and if you don't have it, bad things happen. And it breaks, the disaccharides get broken down into monosaccharides. Examples here are glucose, fructose, and galactose. Fructose is the fruit sugar. Your body has a certain amount of the enzymes that it takes to process fructose, but not as much as glucose. And that's part of why the high fructose corn syrup crap is bad for you, because it's not how we process. So while fruit is good for you, drinking high fructose corn syrup all day long is not good for you. Glucose is your brain's glucose is the main energy source in the body, and your brain only uses glucose. Although your liver can make new glucose, gluconeogenesis, and so you're not required to eat sugar, sucrose, to make glucose. So, and then galactose is part of the lactose. All right. Back to the note set, and we should switch slides here, I believe. There we go. Complex carbs are, we already said that. Complex carbs are broken down by salivary amylase, which I think is behind my head. Move head. Thank you, head. Salivary amylase in the oral cavity, as we have discussed. In the mouth and stomach, and by pancreatic alpha amylase, which is part of the pancreatic juice, in the duodenum. Lactose intolerance, we discussed, not enough lactase, or no lactase, or not enough lactase. And then monosaccharides are absorbed into the intestinal cells via facilitated diffusion and co-transport. Move me back. Hello again. Okay, I'm still in the way. Okay, move me down. There we go. All right. Lipid digestion. Lingual lipase from the tongue, in the mouth and stomach, and bile salts and pancreatic lipase in the duodenum. The three major dietary lipids, the major dietary lipids are triglycerides. And here's a triglyceride. You have a glycerol and then 3 fatty acids, which consists of 3 fatty acids and a glycerol. Running ahead of myself. Triglycerides are broken down into 2 fatty acids and 1 monoglyceride. So you could break these 2 off, and then you have 2 loose fatty acids and a monoglyceride. Bile salts improve digestion by emulsifying fats, which breaks them into smaller bits, as we have said numerous times. Lipids are absorbed as micelles. It almost looks like Michelle. Into intestinal cells, which reconfigure them and secrete them as chylomicrons that diffuse into the lacteal. Where's this? Okay, there we go. Last page. Yay. Proteins are more than 100 linked amino acids with a complex structure. Polypeptides are 3 to 99 linked amino acids. Dipeptides are 2 amino acids linked together with a peptide bond, hence the peptide. Proteins are broken down by my mechanical digestion in the oral cavity. I'm in the way again. How do I get the... Okay. Proteins are broken down by mechanical digestion in the oral cavity. Recall we have said that there's no chemical digestion of protein in the oral cavity. If you have steak stuck between your teeth, it's going to stay there until you floss. We talk about flossing every day. Mastication is the term for chewing. Chemical digestion in the stomach by hydrochloric acid. Proteolytic enzyme secreted in the stomach, active at 1.5 to 2.0, is pepsin. In the duodenum, active at pH 7 to 8, so that's just a little bit alkaline. 7 is neutral, 8 is a tiny bit alkaline. And those are the pancreatic proteases. Anything with pancreatic in it, that's one of our enzymes, ACE, is going to be part of the pancreatic juice. At the epithelial surface of the small intestine, dipeptides are broken down by dipeptide aces. Okay, something's going on. An ACE breaks down whatever comes before it, so dipeptide aces break down dipeptides into amino acids. Nucleic acid digestion and absorption. You eat DNA. Deal with it. Cells cannot actively absorb or secrete water. How does water move? Osmosis. Osmosis is the movement of water from areas of high water concentration to areas of low water concentration across a semi-permeable membrane that's impermeable to solutes but freely permeable to water. But you knew that. Where does most water reabsorption take place? The large intestine. Look at that, I'm in the way again. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Input 2,000 mils. You make saliva, gastric secretions, bile, pancreatic juice, intestinal secretions, mucus. Small intestine reabsorbs. And the large intestine reabsorbs, and then you poop a very small amount out. Okay. So this says most of the water reabsorption takes place in the small intestine. And I have written down that most of the water reabsorption takes place in the large intestine. We should probably look that up. Water-soluble vitamins are the B's and C. And B12 needs intrinsic factor to be absorbed. The fat-soluble vitamins are A, D, E, and K. Have we had this conversation yet? Fat-soluble vitamins can be stored in your body in the lipid vacuoles in the fat cells. And as such, these are vitamins that you can overdose on. Now, granted, low levels of any of these vitamins has consequences. On the other hand, overdoses of any of these vitamins have consequences. Did we talk about vitamin A? And when you're pregnant and you want to take vitamin A, make sure you have enough so that baby's retinas will form, but not too much of the synthetic vitamin A, because that can hurt the formation of baby's retinas. And natural vitamin A is less toxic than synthetic vitamin A. I'm not sure toxic's the right word there. It has fewer consequences. It has fewer side effects. Let's go with that. than the natural vitamin A, but you can eat too much natural vitamin A. We talked about polar bear liver will kill you. Okay. So while there are, like low vitamin D has a large variety of side effects in the body, but you don't want to overdose on it. So if your doctor has checked your levels and they are low, then yes, you take megadoses when you have someone doing blood draws routinely to check that you're not overdosing, that you're not going over. When you're low, you do need to take more for a while to, over time, to get back up to normal levels. But that works best when you've got someone doing blood draws and regulating your intake. Okay. And vitamin K, as we said, you eat half of it and your microbiome makes half of it. And so it's not that you make your own, but you don't have to eat all of it because the microbiome makes it, the bacteria make it, good bacteria make it. And that is something that your liver uses to make clotting proteins. So without enough vitamin K, you are at risk of hemorrhaging. Okay. And then notes I have in the age-related section. You have a decrease of stem cells with increased age, decreased smooth muscle activity in the GI tract, decreased dentition, so your teeth fall out, increased rates of cancer, and it's easier to get dehydrated. And page 29 is a review, and the last 2 pages I have on here, the respiratory rates and volumes, are also a review. So I don't think I've looked to see what's the next slide. Do I have a picture slide? Oh, lymph. Okay, let's have a brief conversation about lymph. Since we're not covering it, you will cover lymph more in micro with Dr. Z. So the lymph vessels, so this like quarter-ish of the body drains right here into right between the right jugular and the right subclavian. And then the rest of the body drains right here in the exact same spot on the left side. So the lymph filters, and those lymph nodes have immune function, and they filter that fluid and just filter it and distribute things throughout the body and then dump it back into the cardiovascular system. And that is Copena Bay. It's a sunset over the water. One of the great things about Rockport being a peninsula is we get sunrises and sunsets over the water. I mean, I'm never up to see the sunrise, but it's magic. Oh, and I want to tell you about my necklace before I forget. My son made this for me when he was little. Well, he had like the triangle right way off to the one side. I kind of restrung it, but he picked out the beads. So, and I always wear the heart on the left side because that's where heart is. Although it does cross midline. Okay, that's all I got. This has been A&P2 lecture test 4, video 16. Thanks as always for tuning in. Dr. J out.